What is going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Off the Shelves. Not such a long wait this time. And so I've got a decent stack of movies here. Most of them are older films and 4K double dips and box sets and things, but got a couple of new releases, but a nice little stack of releases here. So if you've never seen this series before, this is my Blu-ray haul, Blu-ray update videos. I talk about all the movies that I bought within the last month or two, and I'll give you my quick little review of them and tell you whether you should go out and buy it, stream it, or skip it if I have, in fact, watched it. Usually, there's a number of them that I have not. They get stuck on that shelf with the intention of me watching them, and then years go by. You know how it is. Nonetheless, let's start off with the new releases. We have one that I actually bought back in December, but my wife stuck it in her gift bag that I gave her for Christmas, and it just stayed there. So I guess that shows how much she enjoyed my present. Just joking. Anyway, Joyride. This was a film that I personally didn't care too much for, but she really liked it. It's kind of like a female raunchy sex comedy where you got one of them that takes their friends over to China or somewhere in Asia for basically to meet her biological parents. She's an adoptive, she's a foster kid, and there's a whole bunch of hijinks that ensue. I didn't find it to be all that funny. I found it to be very try-hard with the raunchy stuff. If you've watched me for any number of time, then you know that my thoughts on modern comedy. This fits that, but my wife enjoyed it. So if you're a female, you have a chance of liking this a lot more than some of us dudes out there, I think. But nonetheless, it's worth checking out. But I didn't care too much for it. I would say stream it. Now we have a movie that at one point was my favorite film inside of Fantastic Fest, and that was When Evil Lurks. This is an Argentinian movie, I believe, and it's kind of a Spanish take on the demon possession genre, and it's very unique. It's very brutal. It's very bloody. It is bleak. It is fucked up, and it was only overtaken by Saw X because of how much I just shockingly loved Saw X the more that I watched it. So I would say definitely check this one out if you are burnt out on the demon possession genre like I am, because this brings a really, really fresh take to it. The only negative is that the main characters are extremely stupid, which sometimes can break a movie for me. It didn't affect it so much here because everything else was done so well, but I have heard that as a complaint by some people that they kind of lost a bit of luster with the movie because the characters were so infuriatingly dumb. But this one's a go out and buy it for sure. I don't know how often I'm going to rewatch it because it's brutal, but it was worth getting. Oh, here, side note, by the way, I'm actually certified on Rotten Tomatoes, but can we quit printing this shit on Blu-ray covers, please? Make it a sticker that I can peel off. This is so annoying. Like, I don't give a fuck if it's certified fresh. Stop. Now we have what was my favorite film of last year, and that is The Iron Claw. And I debated on not buying this and just holding out for the 4K, because you know they're going to have one. What the fuck is this new trend that we have here recently where you have studios that release a movie straight to Blu-ray, and then like 6 months later they finally release the 4K? Stop doing that shit. But nonetheless, I loved this movie. Just like with When Evil Lurks, it's absolutely brutal, but for emotional reasons, this movie will bring you to your emotional just knees. The last two scenes especially are just going to fucking pull whatever tears you have. If you watch this movie and you don't cry or you don't feel fucked up by the end of it, I think you're an alien and you're not human and you are not capable of emotion. But nonetheless, this is the true story of the Von Erich family, which I am not really well-versed at all in wrestling stories, but this is just a very tragic, brutal tale of just a family that's seemingly cursed and every bad thing possible happens to them. Phenomenal performances. This is the movie that was deserving of a lot of the Oscars this year, but because A24 didn't really push it for Oscars, it was nominated for none. Zac Efron especially, that was Best Actor. I'm sorry, like nothing but love. But this was Best Actor. Killian's awesome. I'm glad he got it, but this was the one. I don't know. I'm not going to go on too long about that, but nonetheless, this one was my favorite film of the 182 movies that I saw last year. So there you go. Go out and buy that one and get your tissues ready. Now we have Your Lucky Day, which I believe is a Walmart exclusive right now. I didn't even realize this was on Blu-ray, but this is another film that I saw at Fantastic Fest that I liked quite a bit. Essentially, you have a bunch of different characters that end up inside of this convenience store, and this rich, obnoxious dickhead scans his lottery ticket and wins a few $1 million, and then everybody inside of that convenience store wants that ticket. So shit goes wrong very quickly, And it's similar to some other movies that I've seen, just, this bottle movie where you get human people that are all pretty good people into a situation where money is brought in and the worst versions of themselves come out. This was one of the last performances of Angus Cloud. You can see on the cover there at the end, or on the back of it. There's some nice little twists and turns in the third act with some other groups of people that get involved with it. So this was one of my favorite films of the festival. I think it's worth checking out. So go out and buy that one as well. And yeah, a lot of these I haven't even taken the plastic off yet. It's been a busy month. And the last one is Thanksgiving. And this was one of the bigger horror releases of last year. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I actually enjoyed it a little bit more on rewatch than I did in the theater. So I'm looking forward to the sequel. I think that there's some really good gore in here. I like the Thanksgiving theme. I like the look of John Carver. And, it's a solid slasher. I was a bit disappointed in the overall reveals of the identity and the motivations of the killer. And, the characters, the protagonists, I didn't find to be very likable or interesting. But that's kind of a common problem that I have with Eli Roth films. I don't really like the characters so much. But if you like slashers, if you like gore, if you like what Eli Roth does, this is one of his better efforts. So go out and buy this one as well. Or at least stream it. But it's solid. It's very solid. Now moving on to all these older flicks. And I picked up the 4K Conan Chronicles, which is Conan the Barbarian and Conan the Destroyer. To this day, I have still not seen Conan the Barbarian. Can you believe that? I saw The Destroyer numerous times when I was a kid. I loved that movie. I haven't seen it in probably 20 years. But I picked this up because I do want to watch The Barbarian, and I have a sneaking suspicion that sometime within the next 2 years, they're going to announce a Conan Legacy sequel. I feel like that's the next thing that Arnold can do to really kind of bring some oomph back to this section of his career. But nonetheless, it was a cool looking set. I picked it up. I can't really comment on the quality of the movies because I haven't seen one, and then the other one I haven't seen since I was like 10 years old. So we'll see. We'll see how I feel about those. Then we have the Beverly Hills Cop 4K collection, and I really enjoy all three of these movies. This is funny. It's a franchise where my favorite has shifted my entire life. As a kid, my favorite was the third one because I liked the theme park and stuff like that. Then in my teens and my 20s, the second one was my favorite because I liked the action-centric direction. And now in my 30s, the first one is my favorite because I like the comedy the most. So it's an interesting little shift that I've had there. But this is a great trilogy of movies. I know people have their opinions on 2 and especially 3, but they're all solid. They're all very watchable and fun. And the original especially is one of Eddie Murphy's more celebrated movies. We got the fourth one coming out this summer, so I will do a review series of all 4 of them. That's one of the reasons I picked this up, aside from just being a fan. But yeah, I would say the first 2 are go out and buy it. The third one's a stream it, but they're all solid. And they're all, I think, on Amazon Prime. So check them out if you have not. They've held up pretty well. Now we have Quigly Down Under, and this is one of my father's all-time favorite movies, and to be honest, I bought it just because I saw that it was released, and it was like a limited release through Shout Factory, and so I snagged it just in case I get into a Western kick. I have plans to make plans this year to dive into some genres of film that I haven't really dove too much into, namely Westerns and war movies. I don't know if I'll do review series or like a month theme or anything, but this is a year where I kind of want to explore some uncharted territory. So I wanted to have this because my dad's always enjoyed it. It seems like a movie that I would enjoy, and they had a limited 4K release, so might as well add it to the collection. Now we have the 4K of American Psycho, which is a really cool little lenticular thing up at the top here. I can't really show it because I still got the damn plastic on it, but you can peel his face back just like he does in the movie. And this is a wild flick. I've only seen it once, and I've had every intention of watching it and reviewing it because it's a really interesting movie to discuss, especially your interpretation of the ending, but I just haven't yet. So maybe buying this will motivate me to do that at some point here soon. But I would say at least stream it. It's not going to be a movie for everybody. It's definitely odd, and it's definitely... it pushes the boundaries, especially for the time and with certain things that happen. So not everybody's going to love it, but it is worth seeing because it's just worth seeing. Just watch it. Tell me what you think. Now we have... Actually, let me get both of these out because there's 2 of these that kind of go together. So we had the biggest 4K releases this month, undoubtedly, were True Lies and Aliens, as well as The Abyss. But I don't like The Abyss, so I didn't buy it. Whatever. I gave it a shot. That was the only James Cameron movie I had not seen, and I gave it a shot last year or the year before when Way of the Water came out. I just really didn't like it. So I didn't need it on 4K, but I have watched the True Lies 4K, which never even got a DVD release, I don't think. No, it never got a regular Blu-ray release, and I want to say maybe it didn't even get a DVD release. Like, it's been a long fucking time since you could get a physical copy of True Lies. I know that much. Aliens, not so much. You can get this on Blu-ray, but this is the 4K, and what the controversy was with these, as well as The Abyss, is that James Cameron essentially gave them the direction to use a lot of digital noise reduction, cleaning up the film grain, and using some AI stuff to make them extremely like glossy and make them look like modern films. And True Lies was the one that everybody said got the worst treatment of it. And I watched it, and I got to be honest with you, it didn't bother me. Like, you can notice it. You can tell that they have cleaned it up. There are certain shots, there's certain looks that have a little bit of that rubbery look to them, but I really didn't mind it. Maybe I'm just not the person to ask. I'm not somebody who's going to get ultra critical on physical releases. I'm just glad that I actually had a 4K copy of True Lies and was able to watch it again. But it didn't bug me so much. If I had my choice, would I rather have the original film preserved and just upgraded to 4K? Of course. But if they want to play around with some of that technology, and look, I didn't think that it was distracting. I think that it did make the film look modern. I think that it looked good in 4K. It was very clear. It was very bright and colorful. So I didn't find that to be a big issue. Have not watched Aliens yet. I've heard that Aliens isn't nearly as egregious as this, so I'm sure it's probably not going to bother me at all with this one either. But one thing I can tell you is that I'm glad that they even have it written here that this includes the 1986 theatrical version and the 1990 special edition of the film. It's got like 17 minutes of extra stuff. Aliens and especially Terminator 2 are some of my favorite director's cuts of all time, and it drives me fucking nuts when you get these new releases or these new upgraded versions of when Blu-ray was first a thing and then when 4K is first a thing of these movies, and you just get the theatrical cut. And because they want to bleed you dry later on with the special edition and these different things. It's like, just fucking put them all there. Charge $40 for it. I don't care, but I want both versions. I'm glad I have that with this one. So when we get a 4K of Terminator 2 that has the director's cut as well, all will be right with the world. But both of these are go out and buy it. These are some of the greatest movies of all time. I would, unless you're somebody who's just ultra anal about preserving film grain and the way that films look, which is a stance I understand. I'm not arguing it. But unless you're that type of person, I would say ignore the controversy and pick these up and you'll probably really enjoy them. Now we have a 3-pack here, the Prophecy Collection with Christopher Walken. And these are movies where I've only seen the first one. My dad always really enjoyed these, and I remember watching the first one with him a number of times. It's got Eric Stoltz in it, and it's essentially like angels coming down to earth, and there's this battle between good and evil, and it's some cool stuff. This was a really cheap little collection for 4K that I saw, and I don't imagine it's going to be around very long. So I picked this one up. Have not had a chance to watch them yet, but I remember the first one being a pretty cool flick, and my dad always liked the second one, I believe. I don't remember anything about the third one, so we'll see. But I wanted to check that one out again. It's not a tumor. Get down. Kindergarten Cop. I'm sorry. I can't. I love Arnold, but I can't help but do the Arnold voice. This is one of my favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger films. I do think that this and Twins are like in my top 5, even though I love his action movies. I think these are just great. And I like the fact that I actually have gotten my daughter hooked onto this one because now she likes watching this, and now I get to rewatch it with her. So it's a really solid 4K. Any Arnold Schwarzenegger movie that gets renewed in 4K, I'm going to buy this. So this is a go out and buy it. It's an absolute classic. It still holds up. It's got some good action and thrills in it, but it's got a lot of heartwarming stuff in there too. So perfect little movie there from my childhood. Now we have the 4K release of Event Horizon, and they've done a lot of releases of this movie. A lot of them. I really like the cover of this one, and I don't know. I'm a whore for rebuying shit that I probably don't need, so sue me. But I've always liked this film. I don't think it's possible because I think they've said that the footage is gone or whatever, but I really wish we could finally see the full intended director's cut of this movie. That's the release that I think would literally break the internet for horror fans, but nonetheless, it's a really wild movie. This is kind of like the most Hellraiser movie that isn't titled Hellraiser in a good way. So if you like movies like that, you essentially have this spaceship that is lost in a black hole and then suddenly shows back up. and you have this recovery team that is sent to the ship, and the ship has been corrupted by something. And so there's just a lot of really trippy stuff that happens. You got Sam Neill, you got Lawrence Fishburne. So it's a really solid horror flick that I've always really enjoyed. And probably Paul W.S. Anderson's best film. Not that that's a high bar. Also had a 4K release of Silver Bullet, which, much to a lot of people's chagrin, is actually my favorite werewolf film. I've always loved this one. I always loved the charm of it, despite some of the low-budget limitations on the design of the werewolf. And yeah, they had a 4K release. So we just did a 31 on 31 talking about vampire and werewolf films last May, titled 31 on 31 Creatures of the Night. I'll link that one up here if you want to hear my most recent thoughts on this one, as well as 30 other films in the genre. But this one's absolutely a favorite of mine, and I wanted to check it out on 4K. Haven't had a chance to watch it to see how good it looks, but I like the movie, so I bought it. Now we have Sleepy Hollow, and, I'm not a Tim Burton guy, but there's like maybe 4 or 5 films of his that I genuinely like. There's Pee-wee, there's Beetlejuice, there's Edward Scissorhands, there's Sleepy Hollow, maybe one more that I'm forgetting. Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, I've always liked this movie. It's one of his darker movies, one of his more horror-centric movies. And so I'm in the mood to check it out again. I figured it'd probably look really good on 4K. Say what you will about Tim Burton, he makes some really interesting visuals and some interesting looking worlds. So I want to see what it looks like. And haven't watched this movie probably in like 15 years, so I want to check it out again. Now we have Primal Fear, absolute classic. If you have never seen this, this is one of the best, if not my favorite courtroom drama. You have Richard Gere here as a pretty cocky defense lawyer, and you've got Edward Norton as this altar boy who has been accused of butchering like the archbishop or something, and essentially Richard Gere is in charge of defending him, and then he quickly finds out that Edward Norton did in fact commit the murder, but it was a split personality that he has, and his bad personality committed the murder, and he's trying to defend and save the good personality. And it goes in some wild places. It's a very good movie. This was kind of the movie that made Edward Norton his career, made everybody take notice of him because of his performance. So it's very, very good, and I've always loved it. So wanted to get that one on 4K. I don't know if I'll watch it here very soon, but that one's one that always delivers. Now we have one that I picked up for my daughters, specifically my youngest. She absolutely loves the original Footloose. This is a movie that definitely is an 80s classic while being extremely silly. It's a movie you can't take seriously for more than 2 seconds, otherwise your head will explode. But it's got a good soundtrack. It's got some fun to it. It's got some classic 80s, I wouldn't say edge, but some 80s cheese to it. So I've always liked it. It's not necessarily a classic for me, but my daughters love this movie. They put it on all the time. Like so many times I'm cooking dinner, all of a sudden I hear down, 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 down. I'm like, fucking God, Footloose again. Fine. So yeah, I picked this up for them. It's not a 4K, I don't think, is it? Yes, it is. It's the 4K. Okay, so yeah, the 4K of Footloose, and a pretty cool little steel book here. Nostalgic. Now we have, even though it's titled here very small, My Science Project. So this is a movie that I used to watch a lot as a kid, and I was sick a couple of weeks ago, and I was just laid the fuck out. I could not leave the couch. I had like the worst cold or the worst allergies ever. And one day I was sitting there, and for some reason this movie popped into my head, and I have not thought about this movie in well over a decade. I haven't seen it in probably well over 15, 20 years. But it popped in my head. I could not find it anywhere. Luckily, there was, albeit a very shitty copy, there was a copy on YouTube that I was able to watch and tolerate. And then I found on eBay that somebody had a copy of this one. So yeah, this came out around the same time as Back to the Future and a few movies like that. And this is just the significantly lower budget version of that, where you got this greasehead here who works on cars and stuff. And he has a science project due, so he breaks into this military airfield and finds this little piece of technology, and him and his buddy start fucking around with it, and turns out it's like a piece of an alien aircraft from Area 51, and that ends up displacing time. So it creates this time warp where, dinosaurs and shit start to come into their school. And like it's low budget as fuck. Like I'm just telling you right now, this is a movie that probably requires nostalgia to completely get into it. But I've always had a lot of fun with it. It's got a lot of actors that I like. It's got the guy who was the main character in Christine. And the only other thing I've seen him in is he's the one who has the panic attack in the beginning of Top Gun. You've got Dennis Hopper in here in a small role as this wacky-ass teacher. It's a fun movie. So I would say check it out if you're really into like 80s nostalgia, you're really into the Back to the Future era, and you don't mind low-budget effects and claymation and stuff like that. I mean, it wears its low budget on its sleeve, but it's charming for it. So I would say stream this. If you search it on YouTube, just search My Science Project, there is a copy of it. It's not the best copy, but at least it's free. And finally, we have Brain Dead, also known as Dead Alive here in the States. And this is a Spanish Blu-ray. This is a movie that has been famously out of print for quite a while. I don't even know if there was a DVD release of it. It is extremely difficult to find. And I don't want to promise too much, but much like with the having plans to watch more Westerns and watch more war movies this year, I want to do a month at some point this year where I review a lot of older zombie flicks. And I don't know what month it's going to be because new releases are going to dictate how busy I am. But I want to review like this and Dawn of the Dead and the remake Dawn of the Dead. Anyway, I've reviewed the older one and Return of the Living Dead and Zombie and some of these other ones that I haven't seen. I just kind of want to have a themed month. And this is a movie that is one of the most popular zombie flicks of all time that not many people have seen because nobody can fucking find a copy of it. So I went on eBay. Somebody was selling this. It defaults to Spanish, but it does in fact play in English. You just have to change the language settings on the main menu, and it is region free. So if you're looking out for a copy of this one, I found it. Just go to eBay and you will find it too. Don't have any thoughts on it right now. I haven't watched it yet, but that is that's an idea that I have for the future that hopefully will happen. Well, that's it for this one, guys. Please click over here for all of my 2024 new releases and click up here for all of my other off-the-shelves episodes. Let me know your thoughts on all these individual titles down in the comment section below. Like, share, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss everything in the future. And as always, remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean you have to be.